This 28mm f1.4 lens should be getting a lot more attention for the optics, the performance, and the price point. But why isn't it? Let's talk about that right now. In my hands is the Thypoch Simera 28mm f1.4 FLE aspherical lens. That's right, an FLE aspherical lens under $1,000. It's around $600 to $700 US respectively, looking at B&H photos. So that is a lot of glass, a lot of lens for a very, very good price point. But I understand it. Some people in the marketplace are a little apprehensive to jump onto a new brand and spend that kind of money. And we're going to talk about that in this video, as well as just the overall performance. Now, a few months back, I did a review on the 35mm f1.4 from Thypoch. This is the Simera 3514. Again, FLE aspherical lens. And this was their first lens to the market under the Thypoch name. We'll talk about all that later on. But this was very interesting because it had a different design element, close focusing FLE aspherical lens for 35mm, again, under $1,000. So the marketplace was like, hey, wait a second, this looks very interesting. And the performance was actually quite good. There were some nitpicks, basically the infinity lock here, which a lot of people disliked. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I understand both sides of the spectrum. They also didn't like that there was a little bit of a nudge between 0.7 meters as you would, close focusing for a rangefinder and 0.45 respectively. There's a little bit of a nudge. So when you're focusing, you'd have to maybe move your body a little bit forward or backward to compensate because it would kind of skip a little bit. And those were things that I brought up in my review overall as well. But the image quality and the performance were actually really good. Also, this doesn't fit on an M3, unfortunately, because of the lens guard ring that's around it, but the 28mm does, and I'll show how that looks like in just a bit. But in essence, for the price in which you're getting square hood, lens cap, you got a cap for your hood as well. You get so many things inside the box for the price point. Thypoch has done a fantastic job. Then shortly after, they released the 28mm f1.4. And this 28 takes from the 35 what was successful about that lens and made it even better in here. The optics are, I would say, noticeably improved. Sharper, beautiful fall off, nice bokeh. It looks really good for a 28mm lens. I'm not a big 28mm shooter myself. It's not a focal length that I would prefer to have as a prime, but that's just me. Everybody's gonna have their preference on it, but I can understand and respect, and I can look at the performance and tell you if it's good or not. And I definitely say this 28mm packs a punch way above its price point, much like the 35, but even more so in some ways. Now, the close focusing on this lens is slightly better at 0.4 meters versus 0.45 meters on the 35mm. Again, you're gonna get 14 rounded aperture blades like the 35mm. You're gonna get a very good glass inside of this, a spherical floating element. All that is inside of here. So again, for the price, you're getting a fantastic lens. And the design, I actually like the design a lot. Now, this is taken from Alpha-Kearns. If you don't know who Alpha-Kearns is, they're a large format camera manufacturer that also made the lens back in the day. And I actually had a chance to see an original Alpha-Kearns lens at Riceball Photography here in Singapore. I had a next to the Leica Summilux 28mm f1.4. I had a black version of the 28 next to it, so you get an idea of how they look together. And the Alpha-Kearns lens is absolutely beautiful. And some design cues, obviously you can see the design language, how they match to each other, but there are some things that I prefer on the Alpha-Kearns versus the Simera. Case in point, the depth of field scale, which is really cool with the dots that show it as you adjust the aperture, right? To kind of give you an idea of where your depth of field is. It's quite muted here on the Simera, but on the Alpha-Kearns, it's very easy to see. Those dots are bright orange and you can really see them easily. On here, because of the two-tone effect and also because the orange dots are not that bright, it's kind of hard to see. So it's much more of a kind of a cosmetic thing than actually a useful, helpful thing in my personal opinion. And hopefully Thypoch does make some changes in the future to make them a little bit brighter, a little bit more poignant, so you can actually see them in a variety of different lighting conditions. So that would be some feedback there. Again, the infinity lock, they have that on the Alpha-Kearns lens, but you don't necessarily need that on lenses these days. And again, Thypoch has fixed that with the Z mount, E mount, and the other mounts that they make respectively for these two lenses. So that is fixed, but in the M mount, it is still here. Also, I like on here that you can actually have a switch to declick the aperture or click the aperture. And that is the same on the 35. It is off on here. And you're thinking to yourself, well, why would you want to do that if you want to use it for video? But why would a lens manufacturer that's making M-mount lenses do such a thing, because Thypoch's parent company doesn't make just M lenses. They actually make cinema lenses. So we're going to talk about that later on, because I think it's one of the disservices that they're doing to themselves by not talking about their lineage and their parent companies that actually excel in optics, that would give buyers out there who are looking at Thypoch going, well, isn't it just another Asian lens manufacturer out there? Why should I invest into it? But if you know who the parent company was, you know how good they are at making cinema lenses, you may go, wait a second. If they can make lenses like that, I'm going to give this one a shot. Anyway, that we'll talk about in just a second. Overall, though, I really like the performance of this lens. Now, I've been taking it with me over the past few weeks, months, thereabouts, and I actually paired it with the S5 IIX when I was in the UK for the Apple iPad Pro event. I just took an afternoon, walked around near the hotel area, just taking some shots with this, street photography, just environmental photography, just to try this out. I mean, by the way, I'm a fan of this camera, and no, Lumix did not send me the camera. I haven't gone on any trips. I got this with my own money. I'm a big fan of this. I think this is a fantastic setup. But paired with this, it worked out really well. Focus peaking was hit and miss, but that's like that with most mirrorless camera systems out there. I mean, some do it really well, some do it okay. It was decent on the S5 IIX, but there are some images you may see here that aren't 100% in focus, but you get an essence of how the lens performs. But overall, I've really, really enjoyed this lens. And by the way, just to give you a nice comparison, we took this next to the Leica 28mm Summilux at Rice Ball Photography. Leon was very kind enough to actually go outside with me, shoot some photos with me, back to back with the SL3 to see how they shape up in terms of performance, sharpness, bokeh, et cetera, et cetera. And you're going to see that they're much more closer than you would think. And that's a hats off to Thypoch once again for creating a fantastic lens. Again, the Leica is an older lens. It's been out for a number of years. Obviously, they were to, bring that lens back out again. It probably would be more improved in terms of sharpness and, aperture blades and et cetera, probably even, better close focusing. But the lens is still a very sought after lens, even being that old. And it does come in a very premium in terms of price point. Okay. With that said, let's talk about some of the fitment on this. I did mention this earlier. This fits on the M3, and I'm going to show you what it looks like right now, because the 35mm had a problem with this lens guard ring right here when you the button to release the lens off the M3. This has no problem with that whatsoever. And as you're going to see, it matches up beautifully. Got to see the marking on this lens. And where is it at? Right there. Yeah, they could have made that a little bit more prominent, but it is what it is. But you can see that right there. It matches beautifully to this. The two-tone silver looks awesome. And yeah, again, there's no 28mm frame lines in the M3. You got to eyeball it, but at least you don't have that issue like you do with the 35 1.4, which is a shame, because if they didn't have that issue, I've been looking for a 35 or other lenses to pair with this besides my 50 rigid. This would be one to definitely pick up, but maybe they'll fix it in the future. Also, Thypoch was very kind enough to send me the Techart adapter so I can mount it to a Z camera system here. There you have it, autofocus with an M lens on a Nikon body, and it's fast and it's precise and it works great. I would definitely pair this with the Nikon ZF, but now they make a Z mount, so there's no reason to have this. But if you want to adapt, this adapter is absolutely awesome to pair to, let's say you want to take any sort of Leica lens and you want to pair it to your Nikon camera. This is an awesome adapter. So big thanks to Thypoch for sending this my way to test with the lens as well. So with that, let's talk about Thypoch as a whole. I am not at liberty to tell you who their parent company is. That's for them to say, but I mean, it is somewhat known in the industry. And if you go on any forums or Google it, you probably will figure out who they are, because they're making some really good stuff, right? The 35, the 28, the new 50 f2 Eureka lens looks beautiful. It's a collapsible 50mm lens. They're doing some really awesome things. When people know that you have a history of making fantastic lenses for cinema, they've been used in a variety of different productions, feature films to TV to YouTube, what have you. People have more confidence in picking up a new brand of lens because there's so many options in there, especially for M mount nowadays. And now when you're adapting other lenses, even more so. Voigtlander is one of the companies that people go to when you're looking for an alternative to Leica, because Voigtlander has been around for a number of years. There's a history there. There is a consistency of quality. And Thypoch is really making a fantastic lens that can definitely compete with that and in some way surpass. But if they don't talk about where they come from, it's hard for new buyers who may be a bit prejudiced to Asian lens manufacturers, and I hear it in the comments, which I disagree with wholeheartedly, but to each their own. If you understand where they come from, who makes their lenses, you would be looking at this company slightly differently. And the fact that they're listed on B&H Photo after all these other alternative lens manufacturers out there, the fact that they're listed on B&H Photo from the very beginning, that should tell you something about who they are, that they actually come from a line of cinema lenses that are well-known and well-respected. I can say all these things on YouTube, and I can talk about these lenses to all my friends because I believe that these lenses are absolutely really, really good for the price point. Are they comparable to a Leica lens? So optics, close. Again, Leica's Leica. I don't try to say anything's a Leica killer. I'm not in that ballgame to play clickbait in that regard because Leica is Leica, full stop. But as an alternative for people who can't afford a Leica lens and they're looking for something that has fast aperture, 1.4, a spherical, FLE, close focusing. Yeah, Voigtlander's got the 28 1.5. That's a very good lens. This is also a fantastic lens. And I think if you give it a shot, you're going to be very impressed with the results. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts here on the Thypoch 28mm f1.4. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. More content definitely on the way. Thanks again for the support, and I'll chat to you soon.